Fans of BattleTech and the development of Total Warfare, thank you very much for joining me for a video to discuss perhaps one of the biggest developments in the game of BattleTech in the past almost 20 years. So normally on my channel, I talk about things related to the Horus Heresy, but a long time ago, I did make one video about BattleTech, and BattleTech is a war game I very much enjoy. And over the last year and a half, I've been getting back into this. And as I'm sure all BattleTech fans know, the game has undergone something of a renaissance over the past 5 years, following the final settlement of the franchise's legal dispute with Harmony Gold, which everyone was happy with. Perhaps not the copyright trolls at Harmony Gold, though. But that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today is the rules testing for changes to an upcoming reissue of Total Warfare. So Total Warfare is the definitive BattleTech core rule set, and it's a very broad set of rules, but you could say it's focused on mechs. And the current edition of Total Warfare has been in print with minor erratas and corrections since 2007, and we're now in 2025, so yeah, 18 years. So a lot's happened in 18 years. And while with BattleTech, one of the things I've always enjoyed about it is the game doesn't chase new additions. The people who wrote it, they got it right very early on, fundamentally. And while there have been minor tweaks and adjustments over the years, most of which happened in the years going from the original Battle Droids to the first edition of BattleTech, and in the years thereafter, the game has been very stable for a long time, and I like that. But at the same time, when you have a lot of people playing, sometimes new and better things can come along. And that's where we're at the moment. And Catalyst Games Lab, who are the line developers, have engaged in a major effort to update Total Warfare. So what do we know about this so far? And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So I'm going to do, I suppose, 3 broad things. I'm going to give a bit of an overview about my impressions of what the strategy is that CGL are using for this. What are they doing? How they're coming at this, what's their thinking. That's the first thing. The second thing will then be to look through Playtest Package 1 and Playtest Package 2. Coming to the end of Playtest Package 2, and soon Package 3 will be out, but this is when I'm getting to this, so I'm going to do 1 and 2 together. And then I will just, I suppose, at the end, I will summarize my thoughts and make a few observations as to what I think so far and where this is going. And on part 2, I'm going to just do an overview of what the rules changes are and look at them each in turn. So that's a plan. So what have Catalyst told us so far, and what do I think they are doing with this revision to Total Warfare of BattleTech? What they've said is they're acknowledging the long period of time since we last had an update on Total Warfare, and that they're looking to make incremental improvements to the game based on player feedback and just, like, I suppose, how game design ideas move forward with time. Game design has definitely evolved with time, and ideas do change, and new concepts come along. They've been very clear to say this isn't a new edition, which I think a lot of people, myself included, I'm glad to hear that. I don't think anyone wants a, air quotes, new edition of BattleTech, but there's certainly lots of room for improvement on individual specific rules in certain places. And from what's been said, and the key individual here is Keith Han, who's also known as Zottel in online spaces, who is the associate developer and lead developer of the Total Warfare project. That is where they're coming from. And if you get a copy of the first 2 phases of rules changes, they've written a brief introduction to that, so you can have a look through that and see, a bit more detail around that. They're talking about incremental improvements, but not a new edition. Record sheets will fundamentally remain unchanged. Apparently there's around 30 which are going to need a change due to an obscure change in a certain rule. And to put that in perspective, looking on master unit list, there's over, I think there's approaching 9,000 official battle mech designs. So yeah, 30, that's not many. That's probably not even 0.1%. I think that sounds fine from a concept point of view, fine-tuning of a game that already worked very well. So that's a strategy. And a bit more on strategy, if you want to hear Zottel talk a bit about this in more depth, the Catalyst Games Lab YouTube channel has a podcast, a live stream, should I say, called Tuesday Newsday. And if you look up episode 64, there's an hour-long interview with Zottel there where they get into the detail of the changes. Yeah, that's worth checking out as well for a bit more context. That sets the scene. Now let's get into the meat of the rules changes and review the first of the two phases of playtest packages. So first one, just like to say, this is nothing to do with the actual playtesting, but nice artwork. On the playtest package, we've got the re-imaged Ghost Bear, Mad Cat or Timberwolf in desert pattern camo, which is a redesign of the artwork from Technical Readout 3050, where the clans were introduced. Quite iconic and very nice redo piece of artwork based around the new mech design, so I do like that. Right, so what are the proposed rules changes in package one? Well, there's not many, there's two. I think I'm right in saying that, yeah. So it's pretty limited, but they are quite big in scope. The first of the two is a change to battle mech hit locations, and specifically to determine BattleTech hit locations from weapon attacks and mainly weapons fire if it comes from the left or right hand side of a target. And at the moment, the way it works, so a battle mech, if you shoot at it and you hit it, if you hit it in the front or the back, you use a table that works for both, front or back. The only difference is on the back you apply damage to the rear torso armor as opposed to the front torso armor. But if you hit the mech in the left or right side, there is a left hand hits table and a right hand hits table, and those are very different to the front back, not in terms of the locations represented, but in terms of the positions on that chart. So these are 2d6 rolls, and the left and right are very different to the front. And I've played BattleTech a lot, and over the course of last year I've rememorized the left and right. I've always known the front for a long time, but most of the people I play with don't have the left and right memorized, and a lot of people don't have the front memorized as well. So either I can help them along by saying what they've hit, or wanting to do it themselves, they're looking at the tables all the time. And left and right hits definitely slow down play. Is that a bad thing? No, because it's an interesting level of granularity in the game, but it does take more time. So the proposed change is to stop using the left and the right side hit locations from attacks coming from those directions. And instead, all hit locations are determined by rolling on the front and back. The wrinkle in that, and the clever bit, let's say, is if you attack a mech from its left side and you roll a right side location. So let's imagine you hit it on the left side, you roll a 6, and you hit the right torso, well, that instead is applied to the side that the attack came from, and you hit the left torso. And the same applies to the legs. So in other words, you can't hit opposite side torsos and limbs when you're shooting at it from the other direction. So everything is then done on one hit location. You just need to then mentally process that a bit if you're being shot at in the side. Yeah, it's quite interesting that. What do I think? So I have play tested this with a fairly large group of players, and to be honest, I think it played well. It achieves the stated objective of making play quicker. No doubt about it. It definitely makes play quicker. It does reduce a bit of the simulation bit about it, because if you think about it, if you're attacking a humanoid target from the side, you can definitely hit limbs on the other side to which the attack's coming from. However, it does introduce a new element to gameplay, whereby whoever has the advantage in maneuvering sequence, so who's got the initiative or who can move in an advantageous position relative to an enemy unit that's trying to attack them, that lends them an advantage. And it's not an attacker-only advantage. It can equally be a defender advantage, because, well, a lot of people would immediately think, attacks coming from the side, mechs can get trashed because lots of side hits. Well, the flip side to that is, if a mech has a damaged side torso, so let's say its left torso's damaged, it can maneuver to present its right side to an enemy, and then it can't be hit in the left side by that particular unit. So I think this is quite subtle in the gameplay element, in that it works as strongly for the defender as it does for the attacker. I think that's an interesting effect of this change. While it is a simplification of the locations, it isn't a simplification of the gameplay, and it actually adds a new element. This has always been true, because side hits give you a high probability of striking the side you're firing from, but here it's saying no, you can't hit it at all, so you really can shield damaged parts completely. Yeah, I quite like that. I think it worked from a speed of play, like I said, but yeah, the gameplay angle is also interesting, and in the games I've played, I don't think it's made any appreciable difference to mech durability. I really don't. So that was the first of two changes. Now, this is quite an interesting change, and this is a proposed change to the damage caused by ammunition detonations as a result of critical hits. So BattleTech ammunition critical hits tend to be devastating. Most ammunition, with the exception of non-explosive types and explosive components like Gauss rifles, which still go up with a heck of a bang, but are potentially survivable by some of the bigger mechs. Most of the time, any detonation of an ammo bin is talking about 100 plus points of damage, which is game over for any mech. Now, if you've got case fitted, then for like clan mechs or light engine mechs, and for standard engine mechs and clan mechs with arm mounted case or leg mounted case, you can survive these ammo detonations with the destruction of that location. For any non-case equipped mech or any mech with ammo in the center torso, then it's game over if you get an ammo bin detonation. You are destroyed. 100, 200, 300, even 400 points in the case of a full ton of machine gun ammo, your mech is destroyed. So that's as is. The proposed change is to cap a standard ammunition explosion at 20 damage. So that's a huge reduction in maximum potential damage. So if we take that machine gun ton ammo example, we've gone from 400 points of damage, 200 shots times by 2 damage is 400, down to 20. Now, there's a good reason to argue why machine gun ammo specifically is overly explosive, because machine gun ammo is propellant. There's no detonating high explosive head in it. So there is an argument to be made that the original rule is actually overly simplistic to assume that the damage inflicted on target is what the damage is going to be from a detonation. But yeah, huge reduction down to 20. 20 is still a lot of damage. That's the same as an AC-20 hit. And for a lot of mechs, it will be game over. But it does mean that intro tech era, if you've got, let's say, what's a good example? A Wolverine 6R. So that's like a well-known intro mech. It's got a couple of tons of ammo. It's got some SRM6 ammo, but it's also got a ton of ammo for its AC5 in the arm. Now, if that arm, assuming the mech is undamaged elsewhere, if that ammo bin for the AC5 takes a hit, it's going to blow the arm off and it's going to do a bunch of damage to the side torso, but the mech will survive. And there's lots of other examples you could give. That this is just one off the top of my head. So it's going to greatly increase the durability of mechs in the 30-25 era to ammo explosions. It's still going to be bad because it's 20 points of damage on your structure and you're still going to take a mech quarry hit from it, but it's survivable. Now, case, so standard case being cellular ammunition storage equipment, that will shift things again by reducing the maximum damage to 10. Yeah, so from 20 down to 10. We keep the rule where damage can't transfer out of location where the ammo explosion occurred, and it also blows all the rear armor out in the case of side torso, which is kind of like how it works at the moment. The big reduction there is it halves the damage done to the structure. Now, this is going to increase the survivability of a lot of mechs, and particularly in a sphere mechs with extra light engines. The same is also true of double XL engines, but those designs are few and far between, quite exotic. And a lot of them exist in later tech eras where case 2 is prevalent, and case 2 is a different ballgame again, and we'll come to that in a moment. So the case, the location destruction will be much less than at the moment. I just forget if it's a 40 or 50, 45 ton mech could potentially survive the detonation in a side torso now. And for clan mechs, probably get, I don't know, would it be 60 tons, 65 tons maybe to get over 10 points of structure in the arm? You can then survive that. Center torso with case, you can survive an ammo bin detonation there. I mean, it was one of the Crusader variants from the, I think, 30-50 era that has got an ammo bin in the center torso with case. As game plays at the moment, that ammo goes off, the mech's wrecked. Under the proposed changes, 10 points of damage, Crusader can take that. So this is quite a big change, and it is going to really increase mech survivability as well, particularly I think for extra light engined inner sphere mechs. So extra light engines on inner sphere mechs, you have 3 engine criticals in each side torso. The destruction of either side torso is mech destroyed from an engine knockout. That is now going to be survivable. And I think you will probably need to be maybe 55 tons. Maybe it's less, actually. Someone in the comments could put that, perhaps. Yeah, what massive inner sphere extra light engine could survive a side torso ammo bin hit with case? I think that's probably a good thing, because inner sphere extra light engine mechs are notoriously fragile once their armor's blown through. So yeah, I like the sound of that. And when we played it, yeah, it did make a difference. So that's that. Then case 2 remains unchanged. Case 2, ammo explosion occurs, 1 point of damage, rear armor blown out, no damage. That stays as is. Case 2 is already brilliant. You don't need to do anything more with it. One thing that struck me about it when I was playing some test games is if you've ever played the Harebrained Schemes BattleTech game, so the one from a Kickstarter, which was, 2018? I feel this makes the ammo explosions thematically more like they were in that. And I think in that game, if you had an ammo bin explosion, it destroyed the location the ammo was in, but that was all. It's a definite shift in survivability, particularly where you've got mechs that don't have case. They're going to become significantly more survivable. And mechs that currently have extra light engines and case, they're going to see a benefit from this as well. Certainly for the bigger ones, which have got the structural mass to survive the ammo explosion. So that is Playtest Package 1. One other thing on the explosion damage, though, that I would add. While they've proposed the reduction in damage, they've not said anything about mech warrior injuries yet from Neuro Helmet feedback. Now, I think that needs to be addressed because otherwise what is going to become the limiting factor will become the mech warrior's endurance. Because if you suffer an ammo bin explosion, you got case, you survived, woohoo, but your mech warrior takes 2 hits. Head hits are common in the game. Let's say if you've taken a head hit from a fall or like a single SRM hit, that's 1, then you take another 2, straight away you're on 50-50 odds of losing consciousness. Losing consciousness tends to be game over because you become an immobile target. So I wonder if that's going to get addressed. I think it probably needs to be for the reduction in ammo explosions to be as meaningful as it initially appears. Yeah, that is Playtest Package Phase 1. So moving swiftly on, let's do a quick overview of Playtest Package Phase 2 now. This has got a load of stuff on legs, and I'm probably going to struggle to get all this right, so do bear with me. So let's talk about the art again. Another lovely technical readout, revised artwork. I mean, it wasn't done for this, but I still like it. It's a Bushwhacker from Technical Readout 3058, which was originally a piece by Doug Chaffee. It's a new reimage piece. And yeah, I think that looks awesome. I like the Bushwhacker for its looks. And yeah, my Bushwhacker has got shark teeth just like that. Right, what are the proposed changes? The theme of Package 1 was survivability. The theme of Package 2 is mobility. Package 3, when it lands, is going to be gear, so equipment. All right, so Package 2, mobility. Right, what are the changes? I'm going to run through these in sequence. Water is going to have fewer penalties for entering than at the moment. So specifically, if you walk into a water hex, you won't have to take a piloting skill check for each hex you enter. At the moment, each time you enter a water hex, you have to do a piloting skill check to avoid falling. This is pretty big. It's a small change, but it's a big change, yeah? If you run or jump in a water hex, you still have to take a piloting skill roll, entering a hex of depth 1 or more. So that will remain unchanged. I like this. I mean, water is generally avoided in most games I've played because it is such a nuisance to try and move through. Even when you're moving carefully by walking, it's still a nuisance. So I think this will encourage people to utilize water terrain more, and in certain areas and with certain mechs, particularly where you're using mechs with leg-mounted heat sinks, this is going to encourage the use of that tech for the boost in cooling performance. So if you're playing Succession Wars era, where just about every mech had single heat sinks, once you get past the first Succession War, this is something you can really play to. And in the later eras where you got clan tech, there's quite a few clan mechs that got double strength heat sinks in the legs. So yeah, I think that's a good one. It reduces a little bit of dice rolling as well. Interestingly, I wonder if that could lead to more people experiencing the unedifying effects of being in a water hex. So here's an actual example from a game I was playing. This was another test game, and one of my opponent's mechs, he had an Atlas 7K. So this is the one with the Gauss rifle, the ER lasers, and the LRM-20. Fearsome weapon fit, but it only has 20 single heat sinks, and he very wisely parked it in a water hex and proceeded to blast away at my force. So it all sounded good, and he was having a lot of fun blasting away and exploiting the extra 4 heat he could shed a turn. It was all going great until my humble Centurion, so it was a 9 AL variant, landed a medium laser on its head, so it doesn't sound too bad, but I also scored a load of other damage on this mech, and it fell over, yeah? And when he fell, he hit his head for 5 damage, which breached the head armor and flooded the cockpit and destroyed the mech. So beware of being in water hexes as well. Right, moving swiftly on. Backward level changes are now allowed. You will now be able to walk backwards up a hill for a piloting skill check. If you fail it, you fall into the hex you're moving into. I like this. This isn't a new rule. This was optional in tactical operations or TAC ops. So it's just bringing what is in effect like a rule that I think a lot of people play anyway, bringing it into mainstream BattleTech. I like it. It's another tactical move option, risk-reward type thing. Next change is to how do we define immobile units? So there's one change here, and this is a new thing that is categorized as being immobile as far as I've read this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the following are now immobile: buildings, hexes, mech shut down with an unconscious mech warrior, or, and this is a new one, mechs reduced to 0 movement points entirely due to damage. So at the moment, if you have a mech that has both legs shot off, it's not immobile, even though its movement points is 0, yeah? And that can be 2 legs blown off from leg criticals or destroyed from weapon damage. So loss of internal structure reduced to 0. That mech would not technically be immobile. Under this proposed change, they're saying that is immobile. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I like it. Bit of a rare case as well. So that's something I see as being real fine-tuned. What this does do is it removes that mech from the initiative sequence. So slight change there. So you can't sync initiative with such a unit anymore. Small thing, but something to be aware of. For what happens most of the time in game, which is a mech has one leg shot off, that is not going to change it, because a mech with a shot off leg still has at least 1 movement point. So you're fine. Also, immobile mechs will no longer block movement, which is a big change, perhaps. So that's interesting. I like it as well, because an immobile mech can't tactically dominate its hex. Next change, very straightforward. A damaged gyro now will have a piloting skill roll modifier of +2 as opposed to +3. That's just a slight reduction in the severity of a gyro hit. Do I like this? Well, I think if you frame it in terms of the average mech warrior, it makes a bit more sense, because so a regular quality mech warrior is going to skill for piloting 5. If you take a gyro hit at piloting 5, yeah, you'd be on an 8 to stay stood. Often when that happens, you'll have also taken 20 damage, which will put you onto a 9. And passing a 9 check on 2d6 is about 27%. You've got like only a 1 in 4 chance of staying up. With this, needing an 8, so reduction in the severity of the gyro penalty, but it's just over 40% chance to stay up, so 4 in 10. So yeah, I like that. The next is a series of changes around criticals to limb actuators. So the first is feet. So the change for a foot is you don't have to take a check for it, but you do lose 1 movement point and you get a +1 to kick. So that's that. Then you have a hip actuator critical. You can't make a kick attack, and you get a +1 for the hit being destroyed as a PSR modifier, as opposed to +2 at the moment. And you also halve its movement points. So the big change there is you only get a +1 on your piloting skill roll modifiers. There's another little amendment to quads, but that's like a quad specific thing. What this then means is when you stack up all these effects, it goes like this. A hip is +1, an upper leg actuator is +1, and a lower leg actuator is +1. So if you take a crit in all 3 of those actuators on one leg, you have a +3. If that leg is then destroyed, so structure reduced to 0, you get a +4 on your piloting skill roll. So it's a nice linear progression, +1, +2, +3, +4. So I like that. I forgot one thing, and this is perhaps one of the most important things on my leg criticals. You only have to take 1 check per phase for falling if you have a destroyed actuator. And obviously the foot doesn't force this. So let's imagine a scenario where you take 2 critical hits to a biped mech's left leg. So upper and lower leg actuator. So at the moment, you'd have to take 2 tests, 1 for the upper and 1 for the lower leg to stay standing, and both will be at +2. And if you fail either of those, you're going down. In the new system, you'll take 1 test per leg with destroyed actuators, and that'll be at +2. So let's imagine our friend, the average mech warrior again, piloting skill 5, +2. So that's slightly over 50% chance. If you have to do that twice, though, it's probably more like 1 in 4 chance of staying up, or about a 3 in 4 chance of going down. As I touched on slightly earlier, both legs destroyed. That then means you're on 0 movement points and immobile. There's some adjustments around quads to keep them in line with this. The next change is around standing after a fall. And this is the last change. I say the next, this is the final change we're going to talk about today. And this is very straightforward. The modifier for a piloting skill roll when you attempt to stand is now going to be -1 as opposed to +0. So again, this is just a slight reduction in the difficulty of a commonly taken test. And you know, it happens quite a lot, mechs getting knocked off the feet. If we imagine our regular quality mech warrior, Instead of needing a 5 to stand up, which is a 73% chance, so about 1 in 4, they're now going to need a 4 to stand up, which is a bit over 80% chance, so more like a 1 in 5 chance of failing. So it just makes it a little bit less harsh for mechs that have fallen over. And that also is going to work with the change on the gyro. So that is everything for Playtest Package 2, the mobility rules. So that concludes the overview of all the changes. So there's quite a few there. So what do I think? I'm very pleasantly surprised and pleased by these. When I play these and I read them and I think about what they're trying to do, they just feel very well thought through and they work on the tabletop. None of these are massive changes. I mean, the biggest two were in Pack 1 with the hit location table and the ammo explosion change. These are much more fine-tuning around movement. It makes things just a little bit less harsh in terms of mech piloting skill penalties for certain damage effects, and it also makes things a lot easier for tracking critical damage to legs and the piloting skill rolls you have to take. I like them. I mean, I suppose in many ways there's nothing massively radical about these. It's not changing any of the fundamental mechanics. I think it's had some new tactical possibilities around movement and flanking. The ammo explosion rule gives a whole bunch of mechs a lot more survivability. I think for 30-25 play, the Lost Tech era, that's going to be quite significant because stuff like, I mean, let's take an example. So classic example, the Marauder 3R, the infamous Marauder 3R torso bomb, which there's a reason why it's there. Maybe someday I'll make a video on that. If you're interested in knowing about the truth of the Marauder torso bomb, let me know, because it wasn't. But yeah, that's a classic example. So if that AC5 bin gets hit in the side torso, bang, the mech's gone. In the new rules, it'll take 20 points of damage to destroy the side torso and the arm, but the center torso can take it, so that Marauder could still remain combat effective to some degree after that ammo explosion. Overall, yeah, I'm very positive, and I'm very much looking forward to the remaining 3 playtest rules packages. I have to see where those go. So that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to say about the current series of BattleTech playtesting rules packages for the upcoming Total Warfare 2026 revised edition. Not a new edition, a revised edition. Remember that, Mech Warriors. I hope you found this interesting and insightful, and some useful thoughts and observations and discussion around what I think of these changes. As always, I'll be interested to hear what you think about these. You know, have you read them? What do you think of them? Have you read and then play tested them? What did you find in your play testing? Which ones do you like? Are you ambivalent about? Are there any that you really don't like? And if so, what are your reasons for not liking those? Is it kind of like a theme thing, or have you found something mechanically where you think there's an issue? As always, I'd be very interested to hear that in the comment section. If you've enjoyed this overview of playtest packages 1 and 2, let me know. Maybe I'll do 3 through to 5, continue this commentary in future videos. But other than that, I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.